Hello everybody, my name's Dave Parry from Wellmeadow and you're listening to the SME Growth Podcast. Now, most businesses want to grow and we're here to come up with different ideas to get more leads and convert them into customers. Today's podcast, we're going to talk about planning and setting up and running a hybrid event. Now, I'll explain what we mean by that in a moment, but with me to talk about that is Rich Buckle. Hi, Rich.
Hi, yep, good.
So we've come fresh from doing one of these recently. We thought we've got to capture some of this learning in a podcast.
Exactly.
Save
Immortalize
other
it.
Exactly. It's been great fun and I really did enjoy the event. It was a great buzz on the night, but it didn't come together by accident, did it? We had to put
Absolutely
a lot of
not.
thinking. And every time you do one, we've done a few now, you always improve on the next one. So
I think, yeah, so what is a hybrid event?
yeah, let's talk about that. Good point.
So historically, we've put events on and we've just had a turn up in-person event.
Yep.
This time we thought, well, let's try something different. We've got a load of new camera kit. We've got a load of streaming tech and all that type of thing. So we thought, got to put it to use. So we had an event recently with Roger Martin-Fagg, who came to speak in Shrewsbury. So we thought a lot of
Which was last week's podcast. Yeah, I've heard that.
And a lot of people that subscribe to Roger's newsletters or economic updates, forecasts from that we promote on our website are not local to us. So we thought, well, is there a way that we can involve them? So we thought, well, yeah, there is. We could live stream this at the same time and let's just make the whole thing way more complicated.
Because we're gluttons for punishment. Yeah.
And
but it seemed like a good idea. We knew that we had an audience that weren't going to be able to come, no matter how much they like to. He's got a good name, hasn't he? People would probably have seen him if he was local. And I think that was borne out in the end. We had lots of people sign up to watch him online. We'll come back to the sort of spread of that. But what struck me as well is not only did we open that out, I thought, just thinking about it for talking about it today, that added benefit to both parties, to both the remote parties and the people in the room. So I just thinking about it, if you join an entirely online only webinar type experience, we're all used to what that looks like. You get somebody sat in front of their computer in their office somewhere. You've got that typical sort of reasonably, bland background. Not a lot to look at really, other than the slides. So the slides dominate the frame, and you've got this sort of small picture of a talking head in the corner. Whereas suddenly, when you go hybrid, you're almost looking like a performance, and the performer, the speaker, has got an audience to react to and interact with. So you get laughter, you get questions, you get pauses for dramatic effect. That just doesn't happen on a webinar. You never have someone performing to their laptop, whereas they perform.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think that there's a better experience for those remote viewers. And conversely, I was thinking about the other way around. I think there's also a benefit of a sort to the people in the room, because they're aware that this is being filmed, and that just gives it a sense of more importance at the time, that there are other people watching who've been bothered to dial in from all over the place, could be all over the world. And it's almost like a reinforcing of their decision to come along. You're the lucky ones, you're there. Other people would love to have been there, but they can't be. So it almost gives this impression that this is a more important event than if they just turned up to a local talk.
I think it helped everyone sort of behave is the wrong word, but because we were streaming,
yes,
we had to start at 5:30, which is when we'd advertised the stream to start. So we couldn't have any kind of hanging around. That did make it a little bit frantic when 2 minutes before we couldn't get the TV to work and things like that, but it's all good.
But in previous events, it's been a struggle to break up the networking bit at the beginning.
Yeah.
I say, come on, now we're going to have to do the talky bit.
But because we had a big countdown timer and everyone knew it was being streamed, and we were very clear about the 5:30, that's the absolute time where we've got to start.
Yeah.
It did mean that everyone was almost in their seats, ready to go. There were no late stragglers coming in at the end.
I've never seen so many people turn up on time.
So I thought, well, we might just advertise it as a hybrid event in future when it's not. So
turn up, put a few screens in. No, absolutely not. Okay, let's talk about some of the practicalities then. And it started out by choosing the venue. Oh. Now, this is almost like a circular story, because we wanted to use the place we've always used for the non-hybrid events, the in-person only, but we found there's a problem. We knew we needed good Wi-Fi. We couldn't get the Wi-Fi there fast enough for streaming, so we started looking around for everywhere else. So what sort of things didn't we like how what else we saw?
We spent probably way too much time on this than we should have, but it was an interesting journey. So we, like we said, we started off at Shrewsbury Museum, which is where we've always historically had the event. It's a great venue, but just didn't have the Wi-Fi that we needed to stream. So, that was, so we kind of then went on a bit of a quest, really, it turned into to try and find any venue within Shrewsbury that would tick boxes that some of which were almost mutually exclusive. So we wanted the venue to, obviously have a certain kind of feel about it that went with the brand.
I think that was the most important thing that started the discussion. Is this on brand?
Yeah.
So we could have got a reasonably dry conference center type thing or a meeting room in a hotel. So that's not what it's all about. We want to have this more of a sense of occasion.
Sense of occasion, just a bit of presence, whatever. So that was the bit. Then obviously you've got there's plenty of nice venues in Shrewsbury, but do they have the capacity?
So not big enough to fit everybody.
We're going to fit everyone in.
And that's a circular argument, chicken and egg argument. How do you know how many people you're going to get before you've chosen the venue and marketed it? So you've got to take a bit of a punt.
So then there's, I suppose, things like the Wi-Fi consideration was a big one because we were streaming. So that's
everywhere we went, we were testing
the Wi-Fi. We were testing the Wi-Fi, and we just couldn't find anywhere that really had the capacity and bandwidth, whatever, to actually give us.
Town Centre Shrewsbury is not sorted yet. It will solve. But we were thinking as well after the event, we didn't want this to be just a sudden drop dead thing and everybody leaves and goes home. We wanted there to be a good opportunity to talk to Roger afterwards, maybe over a beer or two.
Yeah.
So the ambience had to be right afterwards. It had to be almost not quite a bar because you didn't want the background noise, but you wanted something where people could feel a bit more relaxed rather than being in a hotel room for exhibitions.
Yeah. So, and then just, can people find it? So, was it central? So we did even look, our preference has always been to keep it in the town centre. Like say, we can then go and have a drink after, or people can, hang around and go for beer
and some people travelled from far and wide and were staying in hotels.
Staying over. So we didn't want to be out of town. There were options for that. So eventually we solved that problem. By completing the circle. So we ended up buying a 5G
a router,
basically, a dongle. And that actually gave us really good internet speeds.
Now, people listening to this in years to come will be laughing their head off because we're talking about this as if it's some sort of new fangled, 5G. These guys are slack-jawed
yokels from Shrewsbury find the 5G dongle. But what it actually meant was that we could put on the event where we wanted to do it, and still give the people online that were streaming to a great experience. So,
and we got 600 meg download, 100 upload or something.
I'm getting one for home now.
For £27 a month. Ridiculous. So if we'd have known that at the beginning,
exactly, would have saved us a lot of time.
We went back to this great room, which is fantastic in the museum. The people at the museum are great and support us very well. But it's just got that sense. It's on brand.
Yeah, a sense of occasion.
It's a big space, all white walls that we could flood with some coloured lighting and just for the mood lighting and stuff. It was great. It worked really well as a venue. Okay, and then the next bit after you've chosen the venue, you've got to get the marketing running into full chat.
Yeah.
First stop, obviously, you've got a big email database, so you start with that.
Yeah.
Got to be careful, haven't you? How often do you send messages out? How do you send it out? It's not trivial. You don't just say, we're doing something, do you want to come?
Yeah, and I think in our kind of wash up of the event, we thought, well, maybe we could have spaced out some of our emails.
We did have some feedback, let's say, from some people receiving emails. But most people tolerate it. They knew we were trying to do a good thing. They know that we sponsor this event, so whatever the ticket price is, it's a contribution towards the cost. It's not a money maker for us. So I think people were prepared to forgive us because they knew the motives were honourable, so to speak. And of course, we did have a list of people to email to that had previously downloaded Roger Martin-Fagg's report from our website. We publish it on his behalf every quarter. We have quite a strong following on that. I believe we're even number one on Google in the UK, aren't we? For his name?
Yeah, we're pretty high up.
So that was a good start, and those people, I think, understood that we needed to get that message out and forwarded it on.
Yeah.
Another good thing that we did, I think, putting into the email was to show straight away, right at the top, that you had the option of joining online. and therefore there was a very low cost option.
Yeah.
I think, what do we charge? £10 or something plus that for that? Right up to whatever we charge, £60 plus the booking fee and all that. If you turn up in person when you got your buffet and you have your in-person experience. So people saw straight away that in what would have been an objection, I don't want to pay for that.
Yeah,
they could. Although it's interesting, we had some feedback. People still misread that. You've got to get that messaging really clear. Some people thought it was £60 to listen in online.
I think as well, the bit where we advertised it on LinkedIn, the LinkedIn event, and people thought that by saying they were coming to the event that they'd got a ticket, and actually, so
even though it had you've put the Eventbrite listing
link into it. Well, and we used Eventbrite. It was the first time, which isn't kind of, I suppose, you know, it's
there's a very simple reason why we did that, wasn't there? In the past, we've done it by invoicing the people that come along, and you do not underestimate the effort that it takes to set them all up as customers and create the invoices to start with. But you've always got to chase the laggards for payment. And at the end of the financial year, you always end up writing off some, which easily pays for whatever booking fee on whatever platform you use.
Those people know who they are.
If you're listening now, you still know who you are. 2019 Roger Martin-Fagg talk.
So it was just, I don't know, just simpler to use Eventbrite. Everyone uses Eventbrite now for everything. So it was just a kind of...
Great reporting off it as well. You've got a little geographical map of where all the people come from, and it helps to send the confirmation emails out and does the billing. An interesting thing they've changed as well. I did get somebody advise me against it if you needed some of the ticket revenue while you're still planning the event, because their experience was you get paid out after the event.
Okay.
So if you had to pay up front for things, then that's not very helpful. But they do have a feature, whether it's new or I don't know, where you can get paid out every Wednesday as you go along. So any tickets they've sold up till that point, they'll process on a Wednesday and pay you. So you can get some of your ticket revenue in advance of the event. Yeah. They just hold back 20% until 5 days after the event in case there's any requests for refunds or
and things.
But that worked quite well. I'm quite pleased with Eventbrite.
Yeah, it was all pretty seamless, I think.
So we used social. We might have done a bit of paid on social for the event.
PPC,
Not sure if that would have helped much. PPC didn't really cut through, didn't give us an ROI, did it really? I would say that the other more natural, organic-y type stuff worked better.
Yeah, I think most people who came probably had already heard of Roger.
That certainly helped. Yeah, if you have, you would confer some value on the event because you know the type of thing he's going to say.
Yeah,
for sure.
So,
but putting the word around the local networks, that helped. And I think especially if you can get people to buy into the fact that we need a certain number to make this event viable. Yeah. Or having made the decision, now we need to sort of make sure that we'll do it again one day. Yeah. So then people who are coming along have got a motivation to help others. Yeah. So that worked quite well.
So that worked well.
Another thing we did, now this isn't really marketing for the event we've just run, but it was a really clever idea that someone had, and I don't know who it was, but all credit to them, that while we had people there, immediately after the speech, the talk, in the afterglow of everything they were feeling, we grabbed them on camera and got them to just say something nice about the event, purely so we can use that for next time's marketing of the next event.
I think that was my idea.
Oh, well done, Rich. Well done, Rich.
They're going to listen to this now when they're editing it and go, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, the team out there editing, they're going to have you. Yeah.
So, but no.
And a survey as well, similar sort of thing. You use the survey results this time to help with the marketing.
Absolutely.
Next time.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the practicalities of actually streaming the event. That's not trivial. You've got to work out what platform you're going to use. You could, if we're all using Teams or the normal Zoom, you could just set it up like a Teams call or a Zoom call. There are downsides from doing that, though. Got to do all the muting of the microphone. People's pictures coming up all over the place.
I think as well, it's back to that brand thing, isn't it? It's if you're doing... We wanted it just to be the best experience that it could possibly be for people that are on, and as seamless as possible to actually do. There's a lot of moving parts when you...
There's enough to worry about.
There's enough to worry about, and as it turned out on the only day that Roger could make it was a day that both of us were out with clients pretty much all day. And so there was so many moving parts that the team had to handle. They did a great job of it. But you just want to make sure that you've just got some technology there that's going to do its job.
Yeah, don't cut corners. I think it's fair to say you could have saved money on various things that we did.
Yeah.
And I take my hat off like you did and reinforce that point. The team did an amazing job getting this to all work as seamlessly as it did. We would have made that job so much harder if we hadn't have done the right thing. So back to our choice of platform, we went for perhaps the obvious one, which is Zoom's webinar product. It's quite expensive, but as I'll tell you in a minute, not the most expensive. But just for today's prices in 2022, that's $64 for 1 month of a license. When you're doing that for one event, you think that's a bit pricey, but actually compared to the time it would have taken, otherwise, it's cheaper. Don't tell them, cheaper twice the price, Yeah. But we did look around at some of the others, and if you are on a budget and you're listening to this thinking of doing your own, you can get cheaper ones. And in fact, if you've not looked at g2.com, it's a great platform to use for comparing different software products. And if you go on there, one of the top ones for all sizes of business is Zoho. They do a webinar product. No affiliate links. We've got no interest in any of these. We're just giving an honest view. That one comes in a lot cheaper, about £13. But I don't know if you've got to sign up for a certain number of months or something. But that was okay. I looked at a couple of others. One or two were the quote on request type pricing. That always makes you you have to ask, you can't afford it. You know what that is. GoToWebinar. GoToMeeting is a product people have heard, so GoToWebinar is another one. That was a bit more affordable as well, although their enterprise version is really quite pricey. And up at the top end, there was one called Hubilio at $650 a month. I thought, my goodness, what on earth have they added? But if you look at their feature set, I guess for a really big event, it would work. It's got gamification in it. It's got places for adding sponsorship and banners and things like that. So imagine if you had a few thousand turning up and you're managing all sorts. I guess you're going to go to a product like that. So you've got to choose your own. There's a whole load of others that I'd never even heard of before, Big Marker and Blue Jeans events and all this lot. But for us, it was easy. Zoom webinar, $64. Get on with the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That worked well. So that was how to host it. Hardware. What sort of hardware do we have to have?
Well, we used Blackmagic cameras. So we
had 3 set up on the day, didn't we?
3 set up on the day.
Because the unknown there is, where is Roger going to stand?
Oh, yeah. As soon as it started, I thought...
He's a wanderer.
He's a wanderer. I was thinking, we should have just put like a penalty box out or something and said, do not leave this area.
Which made us think, and they were all static cameras. We put them on tripods, and we got the guys behind the desk, choosing which feed goes out on the stream. All that worked brilliantly. But if in hindsight, I think if you knew that you're going to have a mobile speaker, you'd put someone behind one of the cameras, rostrum style.
Yeah, that's the learning point, wasn't it?
Zoom in a bit tighter, pan with them. Yeah. And that would have really helped at the end when in the Q&A, he went into the crowd, the C's party, went into the audience. And then, of course, that's behind where all the cameras are. So we had to pan around on those. Lighting was another one. I thought the lighting looked good. It was very moody lighting, the uplighters,
different colours. And I think that worked well just because of the venue, because very high ceilings, white walls. It had a kind of... There was one point when we actually turned off some of the main lights, but it did start to look like a wedding event.
Different event entirely, that was.
Yeah, so...
No, we needed that. But then, of course, you got that contrast with if you were doing an event just without an audience, you would have floodlit the stage and put him almost under stage lighting.
Yeah.
But that would have created a bit of a barrier between him and the audience, and we wanted it to be that intimate atmosphere. So you got this trade-off. How do you get him well lit? Don't have too much backlight so he's silhouetted, but don't create it like on actors on a stage can't see the audience because the lights are so bright in their eyes. So
I felt it. That was all good. Audio.
Got to give a shout out to Sound Innovations, the company that sponsored us for the event by providing all of that for us.
I think that was it was subtle, but it made a huge impact on the event.
And I've got to take my hat to Rob, who's the brains behind Sound Innovations. He knew exactly what to do from the start.
I think we were just going to go ahead, weren't we, prior to Rob getting involved with just sort of miking up Roger so that it would go through the live stream. So he's got the audio going into the live stream, and just rely on his kind of natural ability to project his voice for the people in the room.
That would have been fine.
And it probably would have been okay. But just having that tiny bit of amplification meant that it came across you didn't have to strain to hear. So, I mean, I was quite close to the front, but I imagine people in the back.
I stood at the back and it was great.
And just having that little bit of audio just made it I don't know, it's probably a psychological thing maybe. You just relax a little bit more because you're not
Well, I thought it was clever as well. The placement of the speakers was very deliberate. And this is where Rob's advice came in. He said, put them just behind the front row. They don't need it. And only angle them ever so slightly in towards the audience. So it's always relying on the walls to do a bit of bouncing. So it reaches the back. So you don't have to be very loud. Very subtle, it's not like a big event where you only hear the speakers. Most people heard him naturally. Yeah. But it filled in. I think it's what
I think going forward, you probably now having heard it with that kind of amplification, I would struggle to not have that in future events. I think.
Even in an attendance only type event. Fair enough. So that worked well, and of course radio mics help a lot. He was lapel mic'd up, wasn't he? So we didn't have to worry. We put it right high up on his shirt, but he does have a bit of a habit, and everyone's different, but he tended to scratch his neck every now and again, and he got the ruffling on the mic, but apart from that, it was fine. Good. And of course during the Q&A, you've got to remember that even though people in the room can hear the question, the streamers won't be able to if it's relying on Roger's lapel mic, who's right up at the front. So we had roving radio mics as well. Yeah. And the temptation was always for the questioner to dive in with their question. Yeah. So someone had to sprint up to them and say, could you just ask that question from the beginning again with the mic? I thought that worked okay.
Worked fine.
And credit to Sam and the rest of the team for running this, but the way the streaming output was put together as well. Bringing all this kit together, you've got the audio mixing desk, you've got the video mixing desk, you've got the presentation that we've been sent beforehand. And rather than using the way Zoom normally does it of just flicking between either the video feed or the presentation, we just had one feed going through Zoom and we controlled that through OBS. So we could do overlays of the slides and we could either put the speaker as picture-in-picture against the slide or the slide as picture-in-picture against the speaker. And the picture could be left, right, top, bottom, different shapes. Different sizes.
Sam did a great job on that. And then we had Verity, who was monitoring what was happening on Zoom, so actually monitoring the output that was going out to the webinar, collecting the stuff from the Q&A. So, and I think it just looked impressive that, I think when we were planning the event and we said to Sam, right, so what do we need to do all this? He's like, right, I'm thinking we're going to need 5 screens. I'm like, what? 5 screens? This is going to it's like air traffic control. And you walked in and it was, there's just banks of monitors, all sorts of wires going everywhere, doing all sorts of things. So it looked the part, and it really did. I think everything was needed. There was nothing there that wasn't needed to make the event what it was.
It was good. It wasn't too much. We had everything we needed. And then I think this last bit is more common to what lots of people will be experienced anyway in doing events, whether they're hybrid or not. But you've got to make sure your intro is right. You've got to get the domestics out of the way. You've got to give people a clear view of the timings. You've got to tell them that there's streaming going on and, the permission, therefore, that we can film this and use your image and your questions and that sort of thing. So I think that's all part of it. Get your thank yous in at the beginning because you won't have time at the end. So I think that's important. The bit as well, I think that all companies need to judge for themselves as to quite how much to go on is if you're running this event to promote your company by association rather than the content being about your company, how much do you do on that? Do you say nothing and just let people work it out for themselves? Do you have a couple of sentences, just say, remember, this is what we are, this is what we do, but anyway, you're going to hear about something else? Or do you put a bit more in there and then risk people feeling as if that's not what we came here for, get him off type of reaction?
Yeah, so we tried with a more subtle approach because we had all this white space on the walls and projectors and things to do some graphics and showcase some of the work that we'd done. And it was all great, and Sam's done a great job putting all these videos together, and we thought, well, afterwards we'll put those on the walls and, best laid plans and all of that, a bold blue, and we couldn't project anything.
Went quite loudly. It went pop, which I think took out a fuse as well.
Took out a fuse, so all this stuff. But it's one of those things.
Well, that's a risk as well. People think about it, but using the equipment from the venue, you've got no control. You don't know how long the bulb's been in there for, and you're not going to have spares for their bulbs, even though your projector would have been a backup if the fuse hadn't blown. But there you go.
It's one of those. Yeah, is what it is.
No, it worked very well.
Roll with the punches.
So there you go. That's our learnings from this time. Next one's going to be even more perfect, obviously, having done it once. So that's about all we've got time for anyway for this week's podcast. You've been listening to the SME Growth Podcast. Hope you've enjoyed that. Please subscribe to it wherever you get your podcasts and tell all your business friends about it. Tune in next week for our next podcast.